While most MSPs are out there hunting endlessly for new clients, the smart ones know their richest opportunities lie in the fields they already own. My name's James Steele and this is Harvest, where MSPs and industry experts share proven ways to grow profitable revenue from your current customer base. No theory, no fluff, just field-tested strategies that work. Let's grow.
So we all know that most MSPs have really, really good retention. And I think the vast majority of MSPs assume that's because they're doing a really good job for their clients. But actually, I believe, maybe controversially, that the reason most MSPs have great retention is because of something called inertia loyalty. People hate to be sold to, but they love to buy. The first of them is you need to have something called a profit matrix, which gives you a really clear overview of who's not buying what. The second thing is you need to commit yourself to strategic reviews. So what happens is they get to a point where they are so reliant upon you, the thought of them leaving you and going somewhere else would never happen. They simply couldn't do it because you are their strategic advisor.
What the fudge, Harvesters? We have Paul Farming Green on the Harvest podcast. I'm absolutely, honestly, this is no longer about you. This is about me having a chat with Paul. This is just an excuse, and that's how it's going to work. But we did actually tap into some useful stuff for you as well. I wasn't actually sure how this was going to go because Paul talks about new lead generation, right? That's what he's really good at. That's what he does in his community and talks about in his podcast. But actually, I was interested in how can we do more with your existing customer base? So we kind of fly in the wind of that idea. But actually, Paul had loads to offer as always. So you won't be disappointed. Get your notepads ready. He talks about some communication stuff. There is stuff about sort of technology roadmaps, how to structure those. There's some Fix It Friday ideas. He's always super tactical, so he was a perfect matchup for this. We had a great chat, and I'm going to enjoy myself and watch it back. Cheers. So I'm here today with Paul Green. What an absolute pleasure to have Paul on the podcast finally. Paul is the leader of the MSP Marketing Edge. If you're not already familiar, I would say the world's best marketing community. And Paul, he may be quite modest about this, but I think runs the best podcast, at least until Harvest came along, that there is in the MSP space. Out of the 120 that there are, I think the MSP Marketing Edge podcast is definitely right up there. Paul, welcome to Harvest. How are you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you, James. And just so good to actually be here. I think you and I were just saying we've known each other loosely for about 8 years. And this is the first time we've actually jumped on a call. So it's really cool to be here. And now I know to watch your podcast as it creeps up behind my podcast. Mine's been going just over 5 years. So you've got a few more episodes to go yet. But I look forward to us having a challenge off down the line. That'll be fun.
It will. I feel like I've got a way to go yet, but I appreciate that. I appreciate the vote of confidence. Listen, we have a tradition on this podcast, and that is to start off our guests with a misconception. So what is it that people get wrong about you when they first meet you?
About me? That's a really interesting question. So I don't think anyone's ever asked me that before. I'll throw something out. When I went to ScaleCon in Las Vegas in October last year, and I sat down with an MSP, a US MSP, and he said to me, do you know what, when I meet you in real life, you're actually a really nice guy. And he said, on your videos and on your podcast, you come across as a bit of an ass. And I'm like, okay, I've never heard that one before, but yeah, so we'll go with that one. I like that one.
Brilliant. I love that. I can't say I see that, but there's some confidence, I would say, in your delivery. I think that's probably maybe what they're picking up on.
Possibly.
Listen, you're best known for for advising on building really effective marketing machines, and that's normally focused around new business. Well, obviously, this show is all about generating business from within your existing customer base. So I'm just really keen to know, what do you think in terms of sort of the marketing tactics that are applicable in that scenario? Is there anything that comes to mind in terms of a general approach there, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely everything. I think I adore marketing. And just to set some context, I'm not an MSP. I've never been an MSP. I've worked within marketing for 20 years and within the channel since 2016. And what I love most about helping MSPs to market themselves is there's so much opportunity because most MSPs are so bad at marketing. And I'm going to take that through to not just bad at marketing to win clients, but marketing to retain clients as well. So we all know that most MSPs have really, really good retention. And I think the vast majority of MSPs assume that's because they're doing a really good job for their clients. But actually, I believe, maybe controversially, that the reason most MSPs have great retention is because of something called inertia loyalty. So the thing that makes it so hard for you to win new clients in the first place is the thing, it's like a double-edged sword. It's the thing that keeps new clients. Inertia loyalty is what's kept me with my bank since I was 14. It's what kept me with my CPA or my accountant since, for about getting on for 15 years now. Both of these are services I'm not in love with, but they're okay. If something better came along, I would shift if I was desperately unhappy. But the inertia, I'll just stay there, it's okay, that's what keeps me there. And I think a lot of MSPs will be terrified how many of their clients would answer with, yeah, it's okay with these guys. We don't really know much about tech, so we wouldn't want to switch, but it's maybe something we'd think about down the line. And I think in terms of selling more to existing clients and proactively working on retention, there's like 1,000 things that MSPs can do. This is why I love what you're doing with this show, because it's all about proactive things that sell more things to your clients or do things that make them happier, extending that existing relationship. And actually, ironically, one of the things you can do that will improve your relationship, and you know this, James, is sell more stuff to people, but not sell it to them in a hardcore, I'm going to sell you everything kind of way, which most MSPs can't sell anyway. But if you educate your clients about things that they could buy and things that they should buy and the benefits to them and how they can remove their fears and how it can meet their needs and their wants, then people, well, I think this is all summarized in one phrase. People hate to be sold to, but they love to buy. People hate to be sold to, but they love to buy. And you see the MSPs that have the most satisfactory, best bonded 20-year relationships with their clients are often the same ones that are constantly upping the bill, selling them more stuff and expanding what they do for them. And, you can, and I believe you can authentically sell more by building that relationship with your client. So to come back to your actual question about marketing, all of this is a marketing skill. All of this is looking, the core marketing skill for any MSP to master, and it's not difficult, is to look at the world through the eyes of that person. So if you're dealing with a manufacturer, for example, and you stop thinking like an MSP and you flip yourself around and you put yourself in their head and you're looking at stuff, what are they thinking about? They're thinking about, I hope that machine doesn't break down. Is that order going to come in on time? And you start looking at things as the client, and it's a complete. You can really get in their head and get a completely different view of the world. And I think that once you've won the clients and you've got that relationship and you're supporting them, that's the key skill. The key marketing skill is to constantly put yourself in their shoes and ask, what can make this person's life easier? What can help them sleep better at night? What do they want? What do they need? What are they scared of? And all of those things that happily, satisfactorily, the answer is selling them some more stuff, which is great.
Yeah, we're straight off with a banger here, aren't we? This is a really critical point and could apply to so many of you. This inertia loyalty idea, it's so easy to mistake high retention rates for customer satisfaction when often it's just they cannot be bothered to move because it's a hassle. But what this means is you really need to be actively engaging with your customers. It's so important. And of course, you'll be doing that to a degree, but just keep that in mind. Their silence doesn't mean that they're satisfied. So regular check-ins with a non-sales focus, that's the important thing. That not only can it reveal opportunities to add value, but it means that you're there before competitors get a chance to sort of disrupt that inertia with a compelling offer, which is always just around the corner.
How do you actually do that as an MSP, perhaps that's more come from a technical background? What's the sort of the approach there for really getting inside and getting down to the understanding what is so important to these customers? Is there anything you can recommend there in the way of sort of tactical tips for getting a better picture?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I can take a slightly more strategic overview, and it's a really good question. It's the one every MSP should be asking. There are, what should we call it? Let's call it the triangle. Let's call it the satisfaction triangle, where there are three things that you do which satisfy your clients and get you more sales at the same time. And those two things have to be linked, by the way. Your clients should never feel as though they have funded your Porsche, right? If they feel that they've funded your Porsche, then you've made a mistake with that. So the three things are, yes. And I'll tell you what the three things are, and then we'll go back and delve into them. The first of them is you need to have something called a profit matrix, which gives you a really clear overview of who's not buying what. The second thing is you need to commit yourself to strategic reviews. And we'll talk about what those are in a second. And then the third thing you need to do is you need to get all of your clients on technology roadmaps. So if we go back to the first one, and I know this is something actually that you help with, and I'm so excited to see what you guys do with this. But I love a profit matrix. So a profit matrix is where you take information that's hidden in your PSA and you put it in front of yourself in the simplest form possible. So, for example, one way of doing it is you have your clients down one side and your services, like clients down one axis, services on another axis, and you put little dots or something, or because you might do this on a board, you might do it on a screen, you might do it right on your wall, might put it on your ceiling above your bed. It doesn't matter where you put it. But the point is, you take the information out and you can see at a glance. Client A buys services 1 and 2. Client B buys services 3. Client C buys services 1 and 3. And we don't really care about what they're buying. What we care about is the gaps. What are they not buying? And this is really cool. If you have this in front of your technicians, for example, if we can train the technician to tell someone, hey, did you know that this client is constantly having this problem, which this service fixes? Then that's half the battle, and we can go ahead and do that. Now, I like physical boards for that, and I dislike spreadsheets for that. But you've got an even better solution, a better way of doing this profit matrix.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's part of Sales Builder. Obviously, that's sort of the background of the podcast, and it's a live view that links to your PSA and links to your suppliers as well, so you can see exactly what it is you've provided on a live basis. So it's based on this principle. And actually, when I joined Sales Builder, my first thought was, I'm sure I remember Paul talking about this on a podcast about 8 years ago. It was quite a while ago.
Yeah.
So this has been around for a long time. It's a tried and tested methodology, but the beauty of it is providing structure, isn't it? That's the thing.
Yes, great stuff. Talk about a baseline activity. If you don't have one of these in place yet, really, there's no excuse. So just make sure you have. However you're doing it, whether you're doing it on a spreadsheet or you're using some sort of tool to query your PSA data or using a tool like Sales Builder, just make sure you've got that visual representation of which customers aren't buying what products. And it's actually quite useful to show that as well to the technical team, so they have that same concept. They're also thinking when they're on conversations, okay, I am looking to sort of fill this grid, and you can share that occasionally in team meetings or whatever it might be. It's just a great place to look for upsell opportunities, and yeah, absolutely highly recommend that too. This episode is sponsored by Sales Builder, where I work. I really wanted to tell you about us because I see so many MSP sales teams buried in admin, instead of talking to customers and building relationships. We help you automate your sales process with standardized product catalogs and professional proposals. Our service matrix, or the white space module, that's the bit that shows you visually where the opportunities are in your customer base, from service gaps to upcoming renewals. Everything links directly with your PSA and, of course, your distributors. If you'd like to free up your sales team's time and spot more revenue opportunities, simply connect with me on LinkedIn or head to salesbuilder.com. Let's get back to it.
Yeah, exactly that. And as we both said, the information is there in the PSA, but you cannot access it. Well, the trick with this is being able to see it without having to think about it. And when it's, I love what you've built there, because it just makes it easier to solve people's problems. And that's the root of good selling, is to solve people's problems. So once we take that profit matrix, whatever we call that, we've then got to do something with that. So we talked about like the tech telling someone there's an opportunity here, or just passing the information on. Where that really comes into itself is not just picking up the phone and saying, hey, we can solve you this problem, but actually making upselling and therefore retention a strategic thing. And this is where we come on to the second part, which is strategic reviews. Now, you may know strategic reviews under their old name, which is quarterly business reviews. I don't know why and who ever decided they should be called quarterly business reviews, because I'll tell you the one thing they shouldn't be, which is quarterly. In an ideal world, as an MSP, you would meet once a year with, at the very least, your top 20% of your clients, if not all of your big clients. So not the tiny bottom tier ones, not the break fix ones, if you've still got some of those knocking around, but certainly the ones that you want to grow and you want to nurture. And you sit down with them once a year and you set the context. This entire meeting is looking forward. It's looking ahead. I want you to tell me about your plans. I want you to tell me about your growth imperatives. What's the most important things for you? I want you to tell me about what's held you back historically. I want to tell me about what you can't do right now that you want to be able to do. But really importantly, this is about the future. We're going to map out what's coming up for your business. Now, if you have issues and you've currently got some conflict with that client, because that happens, and often that conflict seems to happen around the time you're due to have a strategic meeting, which is annoying, then obviously you deal with that. For example, the 65-day-old ticket, right? Which just for whatever reason has never been resolved, or the conflict of, oh, last week this happened, that happened. You deal with that. And in fact, you deal with that while setting up the meeting. You say, look, we're not going to be talking about this issue. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you tomorrow with a resolution to that issue. So that's not in this meeting. Because if we sit in this meeting and we talk about that problem, we've wasted our meeting. So it's really important you keep that meeting about the future and the focus. And this is actually shifting your relationship with the client into VCIO territory. And I say kind of because VCIO is a term that it's the new current buzzword to be abused within the channel of be a VCIO, and actually being a VCIO, actually probably doing it is very different to what we're talking about here. But we are certainly talking about
from the audience just going, Reddit, what on earth? Reddit. How can that possibly be? That's not true yet.
Exactly. My name is going to be all over Reddit in red ink, and because Reddit's the Wild West where everyone anonymously criticizes you, which is fine. I can live with
Guaranteed.
that. So you are moving into a strategic role, and even just sitting down with a client for an hour once a year talking about their future plans, that's a strategic role. It's really important for an MSP to operate strategically, because you already operate tactically. You already operate at my printer's broken, this doesn't work, this is slow. But we all know that's kind of the bread and butter of the support we do, and we all know the proactive stuff is important, but it's easy to forget or run out of time to be there strategically. But if you want the client for 20 years, you've got to move yourself into a strategic position. You have to. If you do it in real life, go for lunch, right? When you go for lunch, you buy yourself 90 minutes for a meeting guaranteed. Take them to a nice local restaurant, something that's locally owned and operated to show you're investing in local businesses. Arrange with the owner that I'm going to bring in 20 people every year. I want a discount, please. And also I want that table. And the table you want is right at the back. And it's at the back, and you come in and you have the client positioned with their back to the restaurant. So you can see the client, and the restaurant, they can only see you. Obviously, we want them focused on you and nothing else. I know, right? It's brilliant. And well, there's another step as well.
And violated.
Well, think of it more as optimize. We're optimizing the meeting. There's another step to it as well. Well, that's what it is. You both of you say, let's put our phones on Do Not Disturb, and you put your phones on Disturb, and you turn it face down, and you put it on the table, right? Because we all know the phone will interrupt the meeting, it will kill the meeting, just as them being able to see other guests coming in will kill it. You don't let them drink alcohol. Some people go out to lunch and just have alcohol automatically. Not everyone, but some people do. So you set a context for it. This is a strategic meeting. Our phone's gone Do Not Disturb. Let's get 2 Pepsis in. You know what I mean? Essentially you take control of the experience, which is exactly what I recommend to salespeople or MSPs when they're selling. You take control of the experience, because bad things only happen when there's a vacuum, so you've got to take control of it. Anyway, and then the other thing is the meeting. This and MSPs, everyone, especially on Reddit, are going to hate this. You do it on paper. You do not do it on a computer, especially not a laptop. A laptop is a barrier between you and this person. This is a 60 to 90 minute connection with that person. The laptop is a barrier. If you must use an iPad, use an iPad, or just make notes on a pad and type it up afterwards. This is a human to human interaction. And actually, you writing up the notes afterwards is an invaluable part of your brain summarizing what we've talked about and what should happen.
So we're all familiar with QBRs and strategic business reviews, but it's such an important part of getting away from that tech support and being more of a trusted advisor. And I really like the way that Paul's thinking about this. He's really got every part of it planned and kind of really is deliberate about what he's doing. The key thing here is to make sure that the meetings aren't just about fixing current issues. Don't be doing that. You need to be taking the clients to lunch, as Paul says, managing that environment really carefully and creating a space for a really good conversation, a meaningful chat about their business goals. This just helps position your services as essential to their growth, not just this kind of maintenance add-on or whatever that it quite possibly could be otherwise.
So in terms of what you talk about, It's the same on Teams as it is in real life. It's big open questions. Difference between open and closed questions. Closed questions is where the answer is yes or no. Are you okay today, James? It's a yes or a no question like that. Whereas an open question is, how are you feeling today? The more open questions you can ask, the better. And there's another theory which you can use, which is called the 5 whys theory. Not Five Guys, everybody's favorite burger chain is delicious, but the 5 whys. And the 5 whys are
easily confused. Yes,
very easily confused. When you ask a question, let's say you said to them, "So what would keep you up at night?" And they say, "Oh, I'd be worried about us getting hacked." Why is that? Well, if we got hacked, I hear all these bad things could happen, and it's just not something I want to happen. Why is that? And the theory is that you use whys to go to deeper levels of understanding. Because when a business owner says they don't want to be hacked, what they actually mean is, I don't really understand what that means. I don't understand what it would happen, and I don't want the interruption. We're on an edge of profitability as it is. If we lose 3 days, that in itself is going to be massively detrimental to the business. So people say things when you ask them a question, but you've got to use whys and explore down and go deeper. And I know this is out of the comfort zone of the average MSP, but go and learn this. Go and you can find a course on Udemy or anywhere that will just teach you basic psychology of how to go deeper with questioning. And that's where you really form the bonds with people, because you're asking them open questions and you're listening to what they say and taking notes of what they say. And of course, when you do this meeting next year, you're not asking the same questions again. You're building on what you previously knew. If they've previously told you that the most important thing is that they open 3 more offices this year, that's the starting point for next year.
I think that framework is exactly what I was hoping you were going to say. There's something there, because I think that's a great starting point. I think, yes, it can be intimidating to have those conversations, but I think if you've got that, it only takes a couple of times that you've asked the why and you realize that actually that's revealing more information and actually it's working. I think then that's going to be quite encouraging, and that's going to get you to your triangle, right? Because what we started out here was we wanted the 2 points of interest to the customer and one that linked with our own priorities, I guess, and what we had to offer that could help that.
Yeah, exactly that. And actually, just as you saying that, a note on the 5 whys is you don't just say why, because you sound like a 5-year-old if you're doing that. But you take the why and you turn it into a question. How would that affect you? Why would that be so important? What would happen if that was the case? And these sound, as I'm saying them now, they sound like really false questions. But in an in-depth conversation, it's incredibly authentic. I absolutely promise you. And also, don't forget, these are clients. These are not prospects. They want to succeed and you want to succeed. There's no one here sitting hoping that this will fail or that this won't work. Everyone wants the same outcome, which is beautiful.
If you're listening to this and you have young children, it's quite possible, like me, that when Paul was talking, you could also hear, why? It's not about that. The 5 whys technique Paul's describing here is a powerful way of understanding your client's true needs. And it's actually really helpful to think about in everyday conversations anyway. But here, when customers are talking about, for example, security concerns, dig deeper. Ask follow-up questions like, how would that actually affect your business? This is just going to basically reveal underlying fears and motivations that if you just ask basic questions, you're definitely going to miss. That kind of insight helps you position solutions that address emotional and business needs, making your proposals way more compelling and much harder to refuse.
The third part of the triangle, and this is where you turn the 5-year client into the 20-year client, is where you get them to commit to a technology roadmap. A technology roadmap is a document where you log what the client is going to invest in the next, let's say, 3 years. So let's say you've done the strategic review and they say, well, in the next 3 years, we want to open 3 more offices and we want to take on 10 more staff. And you say, this is great. So to open the 3 more offices, you're going to need you're going to need an expanded VoIP system. We're going to need to move your cloud thing. We're going to need to do this, this, and this. So why don't I type all of that up and put that in a 3-year technology roadmap for you? And what that does is that shows you over the next 3 years, if your plans come to fruition, this is the investment you're going to have to make in your technology, because you're going to have to spend this much on hardware, this much on software, and a big migration project is going to take 3 months. So we don't want to be doing that the day before your final office opens. And essentially, this is the most strategic thing you can do. But you're laying out what the plan is, and then every year when you sit down and have that strategic review, you update the technology roadmap. So what happens is they get to a point where they are so reliant upon you for what's happening with our tech, that the thought of them leaving you and going somewhere else would never happen. They simply couldn't do it because you are their strategic advisor. So those three things together, there's a lot of work in there, but the reward for that is a lot of extra months of recurring revenue, which is beautiful.
Yeah, it certainly is. I love that. That's a very nice framework. And also, I guess the other benefit of doing such a long-term view when it comes to that sort of technology roadmap is the fact that there aren't surprises in terms of investment. I'm interested to know, Paul. Now, I've definitely got a marketing background, and I'm keen to know of the things that you work with in terms of sort of, campaigns that you offer your customers and sort of the channels that you're using these days. What is it that's working these days in terms of sort of, I guess we'd call it internal marketing. Is there a place for internal marketing? But then is there a place for a sort of an at scale, whether it's content creation piece or whether it's webinars or tutorials on, the content, the services that you can offer? Do you see some scope there for potential?
That's a really good question. And I don't believe you should be focusing content, webinars, education pieces on existing clients. And that's because content is like a big one-to-many approach. If I'm talking to a client, I think when you start then applying and saying, hey, we've got a webinar next week and it's about a new security service we're launching, it's almost bordering on offensive to say, and saying to a client, I'm going to try and sell you something. That's why I'm putting on a webinar for you and all of our customers. So I actually think you should go the other way. And when you are dealing with clients and looking after clients, you look for what's the personal touch points I can build in. But you systemize these so you can deliver them at scale. So let me give you an example. Let's say you've got your top tier clients, so anyone that's over, let's say 15, 20 seats. And once every, let's say 6 months, but not in a systematic, it happens every 6 months. You say to them, hey, can we do like a Fix It Friday? And they say, what's a Fix It Friday? And you say, right, we're going to come in, let's say 12 o'clock, we're going to bring pizzas. How many people are going to be in that day? Right, it's going to be 10 of you in that day. We'll bring in 5 pizzas, whatever. We're going to come in, we'll all sit and have a slice of pizza together, and then we're going to do an intense 90-minute Fix It. So all the stupid little things that are really bugging you. So we've logged some of them from some of the tickets, but I know Printer 4 is a nightmare, right? So let's give Printer 4, let's actually give it some WD-40 and see what happens with that. I know that this is slow. I know that that's slow. Stacey in accounts is always saying about this isn't stable, right? And then just throw them at us. When we come in, over the pizza, throw them at us, and we'll do as much as we can in 90 minutes. After 90 minutes, we have to go because we've all got lives. But you get the idea. It seems like we're dealing with all the small things, and it's the small things which annoy the staff the most. And as we know, the staff are influencers on the decision maker. So when the decision maker says, hey guys, should we sign another 2-year contract with our IT company? And people go, they cross their arms and they go, well, no, you've halfway to lost the contract at that point. Whereas when they go, oh yeah, we love it when they come in, they come in once or twice a year and they do the Fix It Fridays, which is deliberately random. So just something like that. Of course, it's not really random. It's you go and see client A this week, and then 2 weeks time you see client B, and 2 weeks time you see client C. So you strategically drop into your clients with a pre-planned thing, bit of lunch, bit of bonding time, fix some small things. It doesn't even matter what you fix or what you get done. The point is the technicians are meeting the staff. You're all having a bit of pizza together. You go away and they go into their weekend feeling really good. and of course, anything you pick up on that day, which is a bigger problem, it just becomes a ticket and it gets picked up on Monday morning. Simple as that. Now, that's just one example, but I think, yes, you need to go deeper into contacts, touch points. Here's another example. If you have an account manager, not many MSPs have an account manager, but if you do, account managers are always targeted, bonused on selling more services. So what happens is they only pick up the phone to clients when they've got something to sell them. And guess what that teaches the clients? It teaches them that when the accounts guy or the account manager is on the phone, they're trying to sell them something. But actually, what if the account manager just phoned every client, again, completely randomly? Oh, hey, it's Thursday morning. I haven't got a lot on today, so I just thought I'd give you a call. How's it going with you guys? What are you working on right now? And what they really mean is, what can we do to help? And again, there's many, many other things that you could do. But that, if I owned an MSP, that's what I would focus all of my time on. And I'd leave all the webinars and the content to the prospects that I don't really know yet.
Yes, Paul. Love this one. Brings it nicely full circle back to the Inertia loyalty point made in the beginning. Paul's Fix It Friday concept offers a really nice practical way to build client relationships. So rather than just firing up an impersonal webinar, I mean, there's a place for those, we all do them. But think about targeted on-site visits. So you're basically creating a personal connection between your team and the client's staff. The beauty is this means that you're addressing small frustrations that are annoying users on a daily basis, but you're also building loads of goodwill, aren't you, if you're out there doing that? These kind of touch points really help you maintain visibility with those influencers, because don't forget, they will affect the renewal decisions as well. It's not just about the decision makers themselves.
That's brilliant. That's really interesting to hear, actually. And I really like the idea of going in and spending time with the team, because the other thing that addresses is, okay, yes, there's this inertia, and hopefully that will see you through in a lot of cases, but there's always employee churn. And if you lose the main contact, then of course that relationship's weakened. So by being there, being that face, you're really addressing that. Love it. Listen, Paul, we've come to the stage of our podcast chat now where we have a bit of a segment, and this one I think you're going to like. It's called Industry Manure. So this segment is all about, what is the biggest crock of shit that you're hearing out there in the market that really grinds your gears?
Do you know, I've already mentioned it, Reddit. The slash MSP thread on Reddit. What I don't like about Reddit is you've got anonymous people. Okay, so if someone asks a question in the tech tribe, right? The tech tribe, there's your photo and there's your name, right? It's the same on the Facebook group. There's your photo and there's your name. It's not anonymous. So if someone asks a marketing question and other people jump in with their answers, you know the context of who's answering. And context is a massive thing when it comes to taking advice. Some people will take advice from anyone, but I always say you've got to look at the context. So for example, if you ask me about SEO, search engine optimization, I haven't got a clue about SEO, because just like tech, marketing is a very, very big and broad thing. I'm a really good strategist on lots of different subjects. My speciality is lead generation for MSPs. I have a working knowledge of SEO, but if you said to me, oh, look at this page, is it SEO optimized? I haven't got a clue. But you go on to someone like Tech Tribe, someone asks a marketing question, and people answer, and you can see if they're a vendor, you can see if they're another MSP, and you can see, are they a big MSP? If it's a one-man band who's been running for 6 months, who's giving marketing advice, you have to take that within the context of that person giving that. The problem on Reddit is A, you don't know who's answering, B, you don't know the context, and C, it turns into a gunfight. And it's like, guys, it's like a bunch of toddlers having a squabble at nursery, but they've got knives and guns, and it's just awful. So so anyone that gets their marketing or business growth advice from Reddit, beware. And I know there's a lot more tech stuff in that slash MSP thread, but it horrifies me. Just horrifies me. Now I'm definitely guaranteed to be mentioned in Reddit.
That's it, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's why the tech tribe's so popular. It sits somewhere, doesn't it, between the kind of the comment space on YouTube and Twitter comments, I think, in terms of like the vitriol that comes through every time. Yeah. It's not a nice place to be. Our next segment, Paul, is called Pass the Pitchfork. Now, this is where our previous guest asks the next guest a question, and I spoke to Brian Gillette last, a feel-good MSP, who I know you're familiar with, and he's got a question for you. So, in the next generation of business context, where we're seeing work from anywhere, bring your own device, decentralized businesses, why does a business like that need an MSP?
That's an interesting one. Did he know that was a question for me? Because that's a really hard question.
Yeah, he did actually.
He did. He said, stitch up. Thanks, Brian. Why doesn't that? Well, do you know what? If I knew the answer to this question, then I think I would. I think I'd be setting myself up for the next generation of MSPs. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna admit that's such a big question. I guess what Brian is really asking is, how is this going to evolve? How is the industry going to evolve? When I got into the channel in 2016, cybersecurity was a thing, but it wasn't the thing. And now in 2025, cybersecurity is the thing, right? I think we've got to look at how is AI going to be a part of that in the years to come.
Definitely, yeah.
MSPs have reinvented themselves pretty much every 7 years since 1989. Yeah. So, what was once tech repair and break fix and has become, can you help me with this? Has, evolved into servers and networks, and has evolved into 365, and then has become managed services and cybersecurity. I'm sure. We're all screwed, aren't we? If in 20 years' time there's nothing, because we've got an entire, we're all pretty much dependent on that channel. I think maybe the answer is the coming back to the strategic advice. Maybe it's about the strategy. And maybe it's about actually, even if the AI, let's say in 5 years' time, AI could deal with 80% of first line tickets. And that's not an unreasonable thing to say. I think if the AI tools actually keep developing, maybe we'll even see the commoditization of second line support. So what's left is actually the strategic stuff, is the big picture thing. And sure, you can go into an AI and say, this is our business, this is what we do. What tech what's our tech strategy? What should it be? But at the moment, the AI has no way of actually validating whether or not that's the right thing to do. And our brains still are better at making some connections than AIs are. But as I'm saying this, I'm thinking about accountancy, which, in the last, my accountant is always bemoaning how what used to be his bread and butter 15 years ago, which was bookkeeping, is now all going offshore or being done by AI, or is certainly being subsidized by AI. And so what increasingly is he's left with is top level strategy, which it's looking at all the laws, all the tax things, all the things you could do, and plotting an individual path for each of his clients. And that's where he's taking his business. And I wonder if that's going to be the future of managed services.
I think there's so much to be learned from looking at other verticals, isn't there? It's fascinating when you start looking at other spaces, whether it's accounting or some of the sort of the digital and creative agencies, what they're doing in terms of their sort of packaging and pricing and where they're offering value. So yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you. I think definitely. I think it will probably happen quicker than we care to realise. Okay, Paul. So it's time for your question now for our next guest, if that's okay. So James Davis from Technology Solutions Partners Advisory, ex-Pax8, is our next guest. Have you got a question for him? You can welcome to make it a tricky one if you like.
Well, I don't really know James particularly well. I'm obviously aware of him, so I'm not going to be cruel with my question, unlike the way Brian was with me. I'm going to give James a nice, big, easy question that he can slot an answer in, which is, if you could persuade an MSP to do one thing, to invest all of their time and all of their attention in doing one thing that would guarantee that they grew their business, they doubled the size of their business in a year, what would that one thing be?
What a cracking question. I love that one. To finish our chat, Paul, thank you so much. It's been wonderful having you on, and it's been kind of strange just enjoying the podcast and then realising I'm actually part of this. So it's been great. It's been great chatting with you. Listen, our final segment is Yell from the Barn, and that's your opportunity to let us know what you're up to and where you would like ears, eyeballs pointed in your direction.
Amazing. Thank you. Well, James, I'm going to get you on my podcast. I know we've got an interview date sorted out, which is cool. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's our entry level for most MSPs. It's called Paul Green's MSP Marketing Podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, that's where you'll find it. It's on YouTube as well. The other thing to look up is I've written a book. It's called MSP Marketing Start Here. It's on Amazon. It's a paperback. It's on Kindle. And in about 8 days, the Audible version will be approved. That's what the Audible checklist is telling me. So just go and look for MSP Marketing Start Here. And it's actually about lead generation. It's where you start if you've got no marketing right now. I'm also on LinkedIn, or you can just go and have a look at my website, which is mspmarketingedge.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure that both the link to the book and all the most sort of common links and things are in the show notes, so you can find them there. Paul, it's been absolutely wonderful chatting to you. Thank you so much. And I hope we can get you on again sometime. I look forward to chatting to you on your podcast.
Yeah, I'd be delighted to come back on. Thanks for having me on.
All right. All the best. Take care.
My goodness, that was very cool to spend some time with Paul and to pick his brains. Thank you very much, Paul Green. Paul's framework for growing existing customer business focuses on becoming a strategic partner rather than just a service provider. The profit matrix he talked about, there's the bit where you reveal your opportunities. You've got strategic reviews, which uncover future needs by having the right conversations. And then you've got these ideas of technology roadmaps by locking in a longer term view with your clients. Implement these approaches alongside some of the tactical stuff like the personal touch points, like Fix It Fridays or whatever, however you want to put your spin on that. And that can really transform that client relationship from inertia based, that I just can't be bothered to move, but I'm not really that happy, to happy, loyal partnerships. It's not just good business, it's a really nice foundation for a proper sustainable growth. Okay, that is it for this episode of Harvest. If you found this useful, all the links we mentioned are in the show notes. And of course, if you enjoyed it, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend, or even better, someone else in the industry who you know would get value from it. Until next time, happy harvesting.